Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and today we're going to play a game in my Best of the Decades, the 1960s tournament, featuring or using season ticket baseball. I'm also going to do a little bit of a tutorial on the auto manager as I'm playing this game. I know that there was a request from a couple of people after I did a how to play video on season ticket baseball. They're wondering if I could demonstrate some of the auto manager stuff, so I thought I would do that while I'm playing this game. And this is going to be a game between the 1965 Minnesota Twins and the 1964 Chicago White Sox. As you can see here in the tournament, the White Sox dropped 2-0. This is a best of 5 series. So if the White Sox win today, it is over for the 1965 Twins. They will be eliminated from the tournament. This is the play-in round, best of 5 play-in round. And after this point, it is a double elimination series tournament. So from this point forward, teams will have to lose 2 series to be eliminated. But here in the play-in round, it's just 1 series. And if you're wondering how we got here, the White Sox actually, I did a recap video. Suggest you check that out if you want the detail. But in a nutshell, the White Sox were down to their last inning. And Jim Cott had a shutout going into the 9th for the Twins. And the White Sox ended up tying the game and winning it in extra innings. So they won game 1 in extra innings. And then in game 2, it was close for a while, and then they pulled away with their offense in game 2 and now have a 2-0 lead on the Minnesota Twins. And that's where we pick things up here. And I already have everything set up. So the first thing I did was I determined the weather for the game. We are in, by the way, 1964 Comiskey Park. And there's a little view of the stadium there. And so here in September, it's September 4th in the league. So it's a day. This is a day game. The Pirates, the 1960 Pittsburgh Pirates and the 1969 New York Mets will be playing the evening game. And so here at the day game, 59 degrees was the base temp. And I rolled an 11, actually. I've rolled again, by the way, and I'll explain that here in a minute. I rolled an 11, which makes the game time temperature 70 degrees. And then looking down at these 3 numbers, I had rolled a 20, which meant heavy rain was possible, or heavy rain was falling before the game and delayed the game a little bit. And then over here I rolled a 1. And a 1 is the wind blowing out to left field, which will be a +1 on deep drives to left and deep drives to center. All right, so with the heavy rain, you have to roll again. And I rolled again, and this time the weather came up 11, which is cloudy. So the game was not rained out, which is good for these teams because they would have had to play a doubleheader tomorrow. Instead, it is cloudy. We had heavy rain leading up to the game, delayed the game a little bit, but won't have any other severe impacts so far. We're ready to go. Cloudy day, and here we are. Let's take a look at the starting lineups for these teams, and beginning with the 1965 Minnesota Twins. By the way, I was born in the 70s, so some of these names I may not pronounce correctly. And so you can leave that down in the comments if I mispronounce something. I will do my best. I know most of the names, but there may be a few that I don't pronounce correctly, and so you can correct me down in the comments and tell me that I'm wrong. So here is the lineup for the next 1965 Twins. Leading off, by the way, before I begin, these lineups are fairly historically accurate. I went through and picked the common lineup positions for players. And so this is a fairly historical lineup. The only difference is that I do use the designated hitter in both the American and National League. And so the designated hitter was not around in 1965 or 1964 when these teams were around. However, I use it anyway. So that would be the only exception to the rule. So leading off for the Twins will be Zoilo Versalles, and he's playing shortstop today. Batting second in center field is Joe Nosek. Batting third, Tony Oliva in right field. In the cleanup spot at third base is Harmon Killebrew. Batting fifth and catching is Earl Batty. Batting sixth in left field, Bob Allison. Batting seventh at first base is Don Mincher. Batting eighth and DHing is Sandy Valdespino. And batting ninth for the Twins is Jerry Kindle at second base. On the mound here in Game 3 for the Twins, and I'm going to just give you a little bit of a glimpse into where we are here, is Camilo Pascual. Camilo Pascual will be pitching for the Twins. I basically sort by the number of games started that season, and that kind of sets their rotation, if you will. Jim Cott, by the way, started 42 games that year, and so he can go on 3 games rest, but it's only been 2. So he will start Game 4 if we get to that point. Now for the White Sox. The Chicago White Sox. And let me fill this back in here. Little quirks with that. There we go. Here is the lineup for the White Sox. Leading off at first base is Tommy McCraw. Batting second at second base, Don Buford. Batting third in right field is Floyd Robinson. Pete Ward will be in the cleanup spot at third base. Bill Skowron DHing today, batting fifth. Gene Stevens in left field, batting sixth. Ron Hansen at shortstop, batting seventh. Mike Hirschberger batting eighth in center field, and J.C. Martin will be catching and batting ninth for the White Sox. They have faced a couple of lefties. So this is the first right-handed lineup for the White Sox, just actually pretty close to their left-handed lineup anyway. So not a whole lot of difference. Taking the mound for the White Sox is Joe Horlin. And if we take a look at the White Sox, we see that Joe Horlin was 13-9 with a 1.88 ERA that year in 28 starts. He did have a couple of relief appearances, but 28 starts for him. And we are ready to go. I have the defense down here. I have some of the auto manager stuff ready to go here, and we'll refer to that as it comes up. But we are ready to go here in the first inning. Starting with Zoilo Versalles facing off against Joe Horlin. And the pitch is a 5.23, and that's J.C. Martin catching. A 5.23 is going to be a walk. So Zoilo Versalles draws a walk here to lead off the game. And here's where we're going to take a look at how you use the auto manager for stealing. So if we look here, steal attempts. First of all, you take a look at this chart to determine if there is even going to be an attempt made. We have a runner on first with no outs, so it's a maybe. It's a maybe. And the maybe means that you try to establish a lead if either of these are true. 1, does the speed equal or exceed the catcher's arm? So here we have Zoilo Versalles has a speed of 7, and that's going to exceed the catcher's arm almost all the time. J.C. Martin's arm is a 5, so he is going to try to get a jump. Now, the second thing that could have happened is if the D20 roll was lower than speed. So here's the D20 roll. It's a 10. Speed is a 2, so that's not going to happen very often, but that is another chance. So even if the speed had not been higher than the catcher's arm, we could have had a steal attempt or a jump attempt if the D20 roll was less than the speed. Now, the only other modifier is you add +1 to the speed in this case if the game is tied or the batting team leads by less than 4 runs. That speed adjustment is only made when determining whether to get a jump on a steal attempt. They don't get that +1 speed while they're on the base paths. So then I come down here and look, do we establish a lead? And here you roll a couple of dice, a couple of 10-sided dice, and add the steal rating. And here we rolled an 8. The steal rating's a 2, that's a 10. And is it greater than or equal to 10 plus the pitcher's hold? The pitcher's hold in this case is a 5. 10 plus 5 is 15, so he does not get a lead. And on Auto Manager, you only steal or make an attempt to steal if you get a lead. So he is not going to attempt to steal here. Now the other things to consider are, is there a pickoff? And here you look at the higher die, which is a 6 in this case. And is that less than the pickoff rating of the pitcher? Well, the pickoff rating of the pitcher is only a 2, so it's not. So there's no pickoff. Second, you look and see if there is an overthrow when he's trying to get a lead. And this you look at the higher of the lowest or the lower of the 2 dice. That's got to be higher than the fielding rating. The pitcher's fielding rating is a 9 in this case, and that's not anywhere close to that. So that's kind of how you determine steal attempts. So in this case, even though Versali's speed is higher than the catcher's arm, he does not make an attempt to steal because he didn't get a jump because of the die rolls. All right, now the second question is, now that the second batter's up, is, and these are the most common things you're going to look at, is there going to be a sacrifice bunt? Well, here what you do for sacrifice bunts, I think it's on here somewhere. Sacrifice bunts with fewer than 2 out and 1 or more runners on. You start with the bunt rating, and then you add 3 if it's a pitcher, which we don't need to deal with. You add a D20 if it's before 1947, which it's not. You subtract the batter's contact and power. So here the bunt rating is a 5. Contact and power together are 7. 5 minus 7 is a -2, which is not going to be high enough. With a runner on first and no outs, you needed at least a 1 there in order to sack bunt, and he does not have that, so he's just going to swing away. Other thing you can consider. By the way, the steals, the runner advancement, and the sack bunts are the main ones that I look at. I don't really do too much with the hit and run. I don't really do much to the other stuff. But if you wanted to do a hit and run, you would call a hit and run if there's less than 2 outs, which there are. A runner on first or runner on first and second, which there is. A D20 is below the batter's contact rating. And I'm just going to use the same D20 roll. And the contact rating of the batter is a 4. It is not. So we would not do a hit and run here, because that D20's got to be below the contact rating for the batter. And then in addition to that, you'd have to have one or more of the following true. Runner's speed has to be higher than the batter's power. So the runner's speed in this case is a 7. Batter's power is a 3. So it would have been true in that case. So had we rolled the D20 and been less than contact, we would have hit and run with Nosek here, but we didn't. So we're just going to swing away. Sorry to take a little bit longer, but just wanted to show you how the flow of that Auto Manager works. All right, a 185, and that is going to be another walk. And so we've had back-to-back walks to start off the game for the Minnesota Twins. Horland trying to gain some control back here. But he's going to have to do it against the heart of the lineup here as Tony Oliva steps to the plate. And once again now, sack bunt with men on first and second. Now it's a 0. And you take bunt minus the power and contact, which his power and contact is way higher. He's not going to sacrifice here. So, facing off, the pitch. 546. And that's Buford at second base. And a 546 is going to be a single. It's going to be a single. So, Oliva singles to right field because it's hit to the second place side. We took a look at Buford's card, 546, single to right field. I just have the cheat sheet down here. So now we're going to look at runner advancement. Because if it's just a flat up single and it lists a position, then the runner has the option of trying to advance. First, we're going to look at there's no outs. There's no outs. The next base is home. So the next base at home, he is not going to try to advance. So no matter what, you're never going to try to score with no outs. You're never going to try to take that extra base. And I think that's because you don't want to make that first out. At the plate, you have 3 outs to spare, and now the bases are loaded. So bases are loaded now for Harmon Killebrew. And the pitch, 450 to Harmon Killebrew, 450. Oh, by the way, are we playing the infield in? Are we playing infield in? Bring the infield in if there's a runner on third, less than 2 outs, and the game is tied, which it is. So the infield in this case would be in. The infield would be in. In Harmon Killebrew, we just rolled a 450, which is a 6-4-3 double play. However, with the infield in, bringing the infield in, 6-4-3 double play is right here. He has to go on contact because it is the bases loaded. So with the bases loaded, he is going on contact. And a 6-4-3 double play going on contact is a 6-2 question mark. 6-2 question mark. Okay, so results marked with a question mark. Runner on 3 tries to score. Defense may try to get the out at home by challenging the speed of the speed of the runner with the fielder's arm. If they don't choose to throw home, then they're just going to get to play at first base. If they throw home, then there's going to be a play. And the runner on third is Zoilo Versales, who's a very, very fast runner. So the defense in this case is not going to probably try to get him out. They're not going to try to get that lead runner out. I think always try to get the lead runner at home. Oh, well, they are going to try to get him out. Otherwise, they'd only try to get the lead runner if the arm is greater than speed. So they are going to try to get him out. And in that case, we're going to look at this, and he's probably going to be safe. We look at the challenge and the steal here. And the challenger steal says it's 8 plus, in this case, the arm, not the speed, because the arm is what's challenging. And the shortstop's arm, because it went to Hansen, his arm's a 4. That's only a 12. 10 plus the speed is going to be a 17. So he is going to beat the throw home. And bases are still going to be loaded now. The Twins are going to be up 1-0. That is a fielder's choice, though. That is not a base hit. All right. So now we have the bases still loaded. White Sox playing in. And Earl Batty is up to bat. A 108 becomes a 308. And a 308 becomes a long fly ball to right field. That's going to be deep enough not only to score Nosek, but to move Tony Oliva up to third base on the play. So the Twins are doing everything right here. They've taken a 2-0 lead. There's only 1 out. They have runners on the corners. Batty is not going to try to do anything. He has no stealing ability whatsoever. So he's not trying to do anything here. There is a runner on third now. There is one out. And if we come back here to when to play the, when to bring the infield in, batting team leads and runner on third. So, with the double play ball, though, I usually would have the corners in and not the infield in this case. So I kind of overrule the auto manager because I don't think that they would continue to bring the whole infield in this case because of the double play possibility. So corners are going to be in for Bob Allison. 368. And that's a strikeout. That's just what Horland needed here as Allison strikes out for out number 2. Now the infield will be back with 2 outs and Don Mincher at the plate. 181, and that's going to be another walk. This one to load the bases back up. The third walk issued here in the first inning for Horland. Bases are loaded. Sandy Valdespino comes in. He had a pinch hit at bat in the last game, I believe. And he steps up. And the pitch is a 118, becomes a 318. And that is a deep fly to left. Stevens will have room, though, and that is the third out finally. But not before Minnesota gets 2 runs. So the Twins with a 2-0 lead here heading to the bottom of the first. Pasquale will face off against Tommy McCraw here in the first inning. And we have a rare play weather change. Rare play weather change. And so on a rare play weather change, what happens is we re-roll on the weather chart to see if the weather changed. And so we're going to pull the weather back here. And here is the weather chart that we're going to look at. And we're going to roll the die, and we're going to look at these 3 dice here and add them together. And it's a 14. So, cloudy. It was cloudy before, and it's cloudy again. So there was no big change in the weather there. And so play continues. And we're going to re-roll for the at-bat. 666. And the home team is batting, so that becomes a 676. And a 676 at Comiskey Park is a ground out back to the pitcher. Pasquale will throw over to first for out number 1. Comiskey has a large range here on their ballpark, so you're not going to get many hits off of that. Up steps Don Buford. 1 down. Pasquale deals. 404 is a walk, and Buford draws a walk here in the first inning. And so we're going to take a look at him. And his speed is a 3, arm is a 6, so that doesn't do it. But his 1 is less, this D20 roll of 1 is less than his steal. So Buford is going to attempt to get a lead here. By the way, the only time you don't try to get that lead is never steal if the batting team trails by 2 or more runs in the 8th inning or later. So they do trail by 2 or more, but it's not the 8th inning or later. 15 plus his steal rating, which is a 19, is greater than 10 plus the hold of 14. So he is going to try to steal. There's no pickoff. 9 pickoff is 0, so there's no chance of pickoff. There's no overthrow on the lead attempt. Now let's see on the stolen base attempt. 19 plus his speed is a 22, which is way more than 10 plus the arm. And is there an overthrow on the steal? 5 has to be greater than the fielding, but the fielding is a 6. So, all things considered, that is a stolen base for Don Buford. So, Floyd Robinson steps in, man on second now. And the pitch is a 134, becomes a 334. And that is a pop-up to third base in foul territory. And that will be out number 2. 2 down now for Pete Ward. 110, and this is going to do it. 110 becomes a 310, and Ward watches strike 3 on the corner. And that ends the inning. So there is a walk there for Buford and a stolen base, but he is stranded at second as we head to the top of the second. Score still 2-0, Twins. Horland will face off against Kindle here. And 548, that's Buford again. And Buford bobbles this one. That is going to go down in the record or the scorebook as an error. So Buford's had a couple of plays here hit his way, and he has not been successful in either one of them. Now, Kindle is not going to try to go anywhere. And that gets us back to the top of the order. And if we're looking at Versali's, power and contact is a 12. 4 minus 12 is a negative 8. So he is swinging away. Contact is... Die roll is not less than contact, so he's not even not doing a hit and run here. 282. And he's a right-handed hitter. 282 is going to be a pop-up to the short. Pop-up to short for out number 1. That brings up Joe Nosek. And he's also righty, 270, and that's going to be another pop-up to short. 2 straight pop-ups here. And that's 2 down. Oliva steps in. He had the base hit in the first inning. Actually, the only hit in that inning. 544, Buford has another chance to redeem himself, and he does field this one. Makes the stop and over to first. And that will be the 3rd out. So we head to the bottom of the second. 2-0 Twins. Bill Skowron stepping to the plate for Chicago. 443. And this one is deep into the gap. Skowron rounds first. He's going to be into second standing up. And a leadoff double here in the second inning for Skowron. By the way, if you're wondering how to steal third, it's the same process as stealing second. Except in this case, you're going to look at steal attempts, runner on second, no outs, no. So no, you're not going to make that first out at third base. All right. Gene Stevens steps in. 540, that is a ball hit to Kindle. And that's going to be a ground out. And it's 4-6-3 normally. Let's see. Runner on 2 holds at second on these results. So, because it's hit to the right side, it's going to be a 4-3 put out. But Skowron is going to advance to third on the play. Ron Hansen steps in. Runner on third, 1 out. Sox with a chance to get a run back here. 277, and he's a righty. That's a 557. That's a defense check on Killebrew. And that's a base hit. Killebrew not able to get a glove on it. And Hansen, with an RBI single, cuts the lead in half. It's now 2-1. Hansen, with a speed of 3, isn't going anywhere. Hirschberger steps in. And now we have a bunt of 4 and a contact and power of 4, which would be a 0. However, now that we have 1 out, it would have to be a 4 or higher in order to sacrifice here. So he is not sacrificing. He's swinging away. 655. and becomes a 665 because of the home team. A 665 is a 6-4 fielder's choice. No. Okay, so Versali's over to Kindall at second for the put out here, and that is out number 2. We now have Hirschberger on first, but now with 2 outs. And once again, speed of 3, he's not going to go anywhere. J.C. Martin at the plate. A 188. And Pasquale, that one goes to the backstop. It's going to be a wild pitch. And that moves Hirschberger up to scoring position here. Pasquale deals to Martin. 498. Pasquale's a righty, and he strikes him out. That's the second strikeout for Pasquale. And that ends the second inning. White Sox get 1 back. Twins still up 2-1. We head to the top of the third. Heart of the order here for Minnesota as Harmon Killebrew steps in. Horland deals. 125 becomes a 325, and he strikes him out. Killebrew fooled by that pitch on the corner. Earl Batty steps in. 304. That is a deep fly to right. Robinson with room near the warning track, and that's going to be out number 2. Bob Allison, 127 becomes a 327, and he strikes him out. It's the third strikeout for Horland, second this inning. And both of those strikeouts caught them looking at strike 3. So 1-2-3 inning for Horland. Way to the bottom of the third. Top of the order for the White Sox. Pasquale deals 153. And he walks McCraw. A leadoff walk here to McCraw. McCraw does have a little bit of speed. However, his speed isn't higher than the arm of Batty, which is a 6. And the D20 roll is not lower than the steal of 4, so he stays put. Buford has a bunt of 6, power and contact of 6, which is a 0. But with no outs, you need a 1 or higher in order to sack bunt. He does not. So Pasquale deals 498. And that is going to be a deep drive to right. Deep drive to right. There's a 3. You add these 2 dice together. And it's 3. Power of 0. Wind blown out to left, which is a +0 to right field. So it's going to be a 3, which is probably going to be a base hit. Deep to right 3. That is a single plus. Runner on first has the option of taking third. And I believe with no outs, they do not. Runner advancement. No outs. Actually, maybe. Speed has to equal or exceed the fielder's arm. Speed is 4. Right fielder is Tony Oliva. His arm is a 4 also. So he is going to try to attempt to get to third on the base hit to right. He's not going to make it, though. 7 plus his speed is an 11. 7 plus 4 is an 11. And Oliva's arm is also a 4. So Oliva is going to gun him down at third. Now, the trail runner, we come over here to trail runners. Advancing on the throw. When a runner challenges an outfielder's arm, it's also possible a trail runner gets thrown out. That is if both dice equal the runner's speed, he'd get thrown out. If both of them are less than the runner's speed, the trail runner advances on the play. And in this case, the trail runner is the batter, Buford. So let's do this. He's going to single. McCraw's thrown out at third by Tony Oliva. That's going to be a direct throw from Oliva over to third for the out. And Buford will actually advance to second on the throw. He advances to second on the throw. So we have a runner on second and one out. And Floyd Robinson is in to bat. Steps up to the plate. A 306. And that is a deep drive to, a deep fly ball to left. Allison will be under it for out number 2. With 2 outs, you don't try to take third base. So Buford will stay where he's at. And that brings up Pete Ward. So 2 outs, runner on second. 672 becomes a 682. 682, and 682, Ward is hit. Barely catches him. And he trots down to first base. So runners on first and second now for Skowron, who had the leadoff double in the second inning. 265. Skowron is a righty. 265 is going to be another base hit. And a single plus means runner on second scores. Runner on first holds at second. That's going to tie the game. So big hit here for Skowron here in the third. And we have a tie ball game, 2-2. Still runners on first and second. 2 outs for Gene Stevens. 162. And Stevens draws a 2-out walk. That loads the bases. Pasquale struggling with some control here in the third inning. Bases are loaded for Ron Hansen. Pasquale deals 229, and that's going to end the inning as that's a ground ball to second base. Kendall flips to Versalles at short for the third out. So, the Twins escape, allowing only 1 run, but that does tie the game back up here. 2-2. Heading to the fourth. Horland facing off against Mincher. 161, and Mincher flies this one to left. Stevens under it. And that's out number 1. Valdespino in the box. 202 is a 402, and he draws a walk here. Valdespino will draw the 1-out walk. Speed of 3, steal of 3, and this roll is higher, and the 3 is less than the arm, so he stays put. Kendall, the bunt is 6. 4 plus 3 for power and contact is a -1, so he stays put on there too. He does not try to sack bunt. He's swinging away with Joe Horland dealing 326, and he strikes him out. Kendall strikes out for out number 2. Back to the top of the order for Minnesota. Versalles in to face Horland. 385. And that's a grounder to third. Ward over to first. And that's going to be the third out. So Minnesota does get a base runner. Not able to do anything with him, though. Bottom of the fourth. Score still tied. Hirschberger will be in to face Pasquale. 662. Comes a 672 for the home team. And that is a grounder to first. Mincher will flip to Pasquale for out number 1. J.C. Martin 579, that's Allison, 579. And that's going to fall in for a base hit. It's a single there for J.C. Martin. He has no interest in stealing. That gets back to the top of the order. Tommy McCraw. Chicago has had a base runner in every inning. 659 becomes a 669. And that is another grounder to first. And another flip to Pasquale for the out. Martin will advance to second on the play. So once again, Chicago has a runner in scoring position here. Don Buford, who has walked and had a single this game. 298. And that is going to be he's a switch hitter, which is a deep drive to right. 7 plus 0 is a 7. So deep drive to right, 7. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's almost put Chicago in the lead, but instead is a fly out to right, and Oliva will be there for out number 3. Makes the running catch to keep this a tie ball game. White Sox fans thought they had it there. Would have taken the lead, but instead Oliva tracks that one down. We head to the 5th. By the way, looking at stamina here, Horlin has a stamina of 6. Pasquale, though, has a stamina of 4, so he will be subject to fatigue starting this inning. All right. Horlin dishes the Nosek. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. 5:02, and we have a rare play. 492 is going to be the rare play. 492. So 5:02, 492, I believe is what I said. 492. And it's kind of hard to read, so I'm going to blow it up a little bit. 492. So this is a single to right field, and if the white die is higher than the right fielder's fielding, the batter advances to second on a fielding error. So the right fielder is Robinson. Fielding is an 8. The white die is a 9. So that will, in fact, be a single, and Nosek gets to second on an error by Robinson as he bobbles the base hit. It's a second error for the White Sox and puts Nosek into scoring position here. Now, he's not going to do anything because his speed's only a 3, and there's no way to roll below his steal. So his speed actually is a 4 because it's a tie game. Still not high enough. It needed to be a 5. But that brings up Tony Oliva with some chance to do some damage. 684. I don't think it's high enough. 684. It is actually, though. 684 is a bloop single. So this one just falls in. And now we have runners on the corners with no outs. Once again, with runners on the corners, I like to do corners in only. Actually, though, with no outs, we'll bring the whole infield in. So Harmon Killebrew steps in. Infield in. Runners on the corners. Oh, he strikes him out. It's a second strikeout for Killebrew this game. And the fifth actually for Horlin. So now with one out, corners are going to be in only because they're going to try for that double play if they can. Earl Batty, 153. 153 is a 3-1. I believe that's going to score him even with the corners in. So that guy would be in. Let's see here. 3-1. And does he go on the play? That's the question. Runner on third is a running rating of 3. So here's what you do to see if the runner goes on contact. He goes on contact if there is 1 out and they have a speed of 3 or higher. Well, guess what? There's 1 out and he has a speed of 3 or higher. So that means that Nosek is trying to score on the play. And now, are they going to try to throw for the lead runner? Try to get the lead runner at home. So they are going to try to get the lead runner. So coming back to the chart here, 3-1. Going on contact, 3-2 question mark. They may get the out at home by challenging the speed with the fielder's arm. So the first baseman, in this case, is McCraw, and his arm's also a 3. Challenge, 3 plus his arm, 9 plus his arm of 12. 10 plus the speed is 13. So they try to get the runner at home, but close play at the plate, and Nosek just slides underneath Martin. So once again, we have a fielder's choice, and Nosek scores on the play. So now we have runners on first and second with 1 out. And Allison steps in. He's struck out twice. Horland deals. Horland's a righty. That's going to be a single to left. Oliva would be the runner in this case. So runner advancement. With 1 out, he might go if his speed equals or exceeds the fielder's arm. And the left fielder in this case is Stevens. Stevens' arm is a 5, so he does not try to go, because this die roll also isn't less than the speed. So it is going to load the bases, though. So bases are loaded. 1 out. Minnesota's up 3-2. And Mincher steps in. And they are going to have the infield in once again. But it won't matter. 607. 607 is a strikeout. So Mincher strikes out for out number 2, which means the infield moves back for Valdespino here. Bases are loaded, 2 outs. Horland deals to Valdespino, and that's a walk, a bases loaded walk here in the the 5th inning. That will push another run across. Minnesota now up 4-2. Horland deals to Kindall. 264. And he's going to get out of the inning with a pop-up on the infield. Hansen under it for the 3rd out, but not before Minnesota does some more damage. Minnesota now up 4-2 here as we head to the bottom of the 5th. Keep in mind, though, Pasquale will be subject to fatigue immediately. So any batter, any base hit or walk will increase his fatigue. Floyd Robinson, 168, and that's a walk. So there's an example right there. He has a fatigue of 1 now. Robinson, 3-3, and that's not less. It's got to be less than, not equal to. Pete Ward has a bunt of 3, contact to power way higher than that, so he's not going to try to do that. Pete Ward swinging away. 111 becomes a 311, and he watches strike 3. It's a big strike out there for Pasquale. And Bill Skowron steps in. He's 2 for 2 today. Had an RBI single in the 3rd inning. 147. This time he flies one to left. Allison under it for out number 2. Stevens. And he strikes him out. And that's 3 down. So Pasquale leaves the inning with only a fatigue of 1. And by the way, if you're wondering how to remove pitchers using the auto manager, mid-inning starter has to be taken out if it's a 4. Between innings if he has a 3. So he's only at a 1 right now, so he's not coming out of the game. So, Horland facing off against Versalles. 332, and he strikes him out. Great start to the inning here for Horland. Nosek. 171. And he walks him. Horland having some trouble here last inning into this one. Nosek is not going to try to go anywhere. And that brings up Tony Oliva. 332. And that one's a dribbler in the infield, and he's going to be safe. So now we have runners on first and second with 1 out. And Harmon Killebrew steps in. 438. He's a righty, and he strikes him out. It's the 3rd strikeout of the game for Killebrew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the 8th strikeout for Horland. So 2 outs now in Batty. 160, and that's going to be a fly out to left. Stevens is under it for out number 3. So Horland gets through the inning. We head to the bottom of the 6th. Minnesota still up 4-2. Pasquale faces off against Ron Hansen. 623 becomes a 643, 10 for home field and 10 for the 1 level of fatigue. That's not high enough. That is a ground out to first. Mincher handles it himself. 1 down. Hirschberger, he's 0 for 2 today. 539. Mincher not able to handle it. He bobbles this one, and that'll be an error. It's the 3rd error of the game. First one for the Twins. Hirschberger, speed isn't high enough, and the die roll is not low enough, so he stays put. That brings up J.C. Martin. 218 becomes a 418. Martin dribbles one in front of the plate. Batty will field this one and throw to first for out number 2. Hirschberger advances second on the play. And we're back to the top of the lineup. McCraw is 0 for 2 today with a walk. And we have a rare play. 503 is the roll. Runner on second with 2 outs. I'm going to look at page 37. Page 37. Because there are 2 outs and a runner on second. 502 is the roll. Pitch in the dirt bounces away from the catcher. The runner must try to advance to third by challenging the catcher's arm. Let's look at the challenge. 7+ speed. Hirschberger's speed is only a 3. That's a 10. And 10 plus the catcher's arm is going to be way higher than that. Safe on a pass ball, but instead he is thrown out. So runner is caught stealing third. And that ends the inning. So the White Sox give a little help to the Twins there because of a misplay by Hirschberger on the bases. All right, so Horlin will be subject to fatigue this inning. And he will face Allison, Mincher, and Valdespino. 5:33. That's McCraw, and McCraw will handle this one himself for out number 1. Mincher steps in. He's 0 for 2. He has a walk, though, in the first inning. 6:52. And this one's a grounder to second. Buford over to first for out number 2. Horlin hoping for a quiet inning here. 5:13, and he's going to get it. This is a ground ball back to Horlin, and he will throw over to McCraw. A 1-2-3 inning here for Horlin. Just what he needed. So bottom of the 7th. Time for the 7th inning stretch. Let's take a look at the game. Minnesota Twins, 4 runs on 5 hits and 1 error. Chicago, 2 runs on 5 hits and 2 errors. And quite a few walks in this game also. Quite a few. We have the top of the lineup for Chicago. Pasquale has 1 level of fatigue. He deals. 182 is a base hit. So leadoff single here from McCraw. That's a 2nd level of fatigue for Pasquale. And let's see if McCraw attempts to get a lead. Remember, the lead they only don't attempt if they're down by 2 or more in the 8th inning or later. It's only the 7th inning. So he is going to attempt if he gets a chance. A 4 isn't going to be high enough. However, this die roll of 3 is less than steal. So they're going to try to get a lead here. 13 plus steal is a 17. Hold of 14. So he is going to try to steal. Pickoff, no. And fielding, no. Challenge or steal. 9 plus speed is 13. And he's going to get caught stealing here. Batty with 2 back-to-back innings here. Or he's gunned down runners on the base paths. White Sox ruining some opportunities. Buford. 442. And this one's a ground out to second. For out number 2 now. Floyd Robinson. 224 becomes a 424. And this one's grounded back to Pasquale, who throws over to first for out number 3. So Pasquale with another level of fatigue, but the White Sox make things easy on him that inning again. We head to the 8th. Kindall will step in. 692. That's going to be something. 692. It's a base hit, a leadoff single here for Kindall. And with these 2-2, he is not going to go anywhere. 1 level of fatigue now for Horlin. Zoilo Versalles steps in. 157. This one's lifted to left. Stevens, plenty of room. And that's one down. Nosek. He's 1 for 2 with a couple of walks. 228. And this is what Horland needed, as he's a righty. That's going to be a 5-4-3 double play around the horn. Ward to Buford to McCraw. And that ends the inning. We head to the bottom of the 8th. Twins still up 4-2. Pete Ward will be the first batter for Chicago. 134 becomes a 334, and that's a base hit. It's a low dribbler on the infield again. A leadoff single, and that makes Pasquale's fatigue 3. Ward is not trying to get a lead here. Skowron. Swinging away. 121 becomes a 321, and that's a deep drive to right at the warning track, but Oliva hauls it in for out number 1. 1 down here in the 8th. Chicago trying to get something started again. Gene Stevens, and that's not going to do it. That's going to be a strikeout on the corner. Stevens watches strike 3 go by. It's his second strikeout of the game for Stevens. And the 5th for Pasquale. 2 down now. Ron Hansen. Hansen hitting 385 so far in the tournament here. 650. Now's where things get interesting. That becomes a 660 because of home team. And then we had 30 more because of 3 levels of fatigue. So that becomes a 690. This might be the end for Pasquale, and it is. 690 is going to 2-base single. Hansen laces one in the outfield. Ward to third. So 2 outs, runners on the corners here in the 8th. And that is going to do it for Pasquale. Is a fatigue level of 4 now, which if we look means starter gets taken out mid-inning if that's the case. And we are mid-inning. Pasquale did fairly well, 7 2/3 innings. So Pasquale pitches 7 2/3. And they want to keep this lead. Oh my goodness. And that, my friends, is a triple. Down into the corner, bouncing around. McCraw around second. Slides into third and beats the throw. And just like that, it's a 5-3 game, which will bring the tying run to the to bat. They're going to play straight up because that runner on third does not mean anything. And Don Buford will step in. Worthington is subject to fatigue now because he's allowed 1 run, which matches his stamina. 610 becomes a 620 because of the home team. And that's going to be a pop-up on the infield. It's just what the Twins needed here, as Kindle hauls that one in for out number 1. Floyd Robinson steps in. He's 0 for 3 today, but he's walked. Oh boy. No, it's not going to be high enough. 296. A lefty deep to center. 7 plus 4 is 11. Plus 1, because the wind's blowing out, is a 12. Deep center field 12. Look at that wind. Look at that wind. It would have been a double otherwise. Instead, it is a fly out to center. Minnesota thanking themselves for the wind in this case. Runner on third has a chance to score, but he will not even attempt it because he is not the tying run. So that brings up Pete Ward. Last chance for Chicago. Worthington deals. Ward grounds this one to first, and Mincher will be up with it, and he races to the bag and beats Ward for the third out. The Minnesota Twins have won 5-3 to keep their hopes alive in the tournament. It wasn't easy, but they did it. Minnesota 5 runs on 7 hits and 1 error. Chicago 3 runs on 9 hits and 2 errors. Boy, what a mess of a game here. Here in the middle innings. Killebrew had that solo shot in the 9th, but that was pretty much irrelevant by then. It was really these couple of runs here in the 5th that did the White Sox in. Batty, even though he was 0 for 5, had 2 RBI. Of course, Killebrew also had 2 RBI, only because they tried to throw the runner out at home here in the first inning. So 2 of those runs were because they tried to throw a runner out at home and were unsuccessful both times. The White Sox also had 2 runners thrown out on the base paths, basically trying to steal. So White Sox had their chances, but come up short in this one. Oliva was 3 for 5 in this game. One of those runs scored. And in fact, well, this is a single and error, so there was no, it wouldn't have mattered. Would not have mattered. Because the run walked in a run here, so it wouldn't have mattered. So there you have it. Minnesota Twins to live to fight another day. They think the teams will be back again tomorrow. And it looks like it will be a rematch with the starting pitchers from Game 1. Gary Peters will be pitching on 3 days rest, and so will Jim Cott. Win goes to Camilo Pascual. The save goes to Al Worthington, with Klipstein getting the hold in this case. And as a reminder, teams will play again. Now, the other teams playing today are the 1969 Mets will be at the 1960 Pittsburgh Pirates. That series is tied at a game apiece. So, hopefully you found that to be interesting. Be sure to follow or watch baseballmaelstrom.com if you want to follow all the action. So be sure to be sure to head over to baseballmaelstrom.com to follow all the action. Here's a look at the bracket. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. And I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, have a great evening. Be sure to head over to baseballmaelstrom.com to follow all the action. Here's a look at the bracket. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. And I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, have a great evening.